They shoved her to ground like she was trash. 82 years old, barefoot, bruised, crying out for help as people walked by like she wasn't even there. But then Jason Statham stepped out of his truck. He didn't raise his voice, didn't raise a fist, just looked at them, the two officers who thought they were untouchable, and said 5 quiet words. That's somebody's mother. Walk away. They didn't, and that was their mistake. Because Jason doesn't fight for revenge. He fights for the ones who can't. And this time, they picked the wrong woman. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. Jason Statham never wanted to be noticed. Not anymore. He lived on the edge of a tired Ohio town, where the coffee's always burnt and the streets forget your name the moment you leave them. His house was small. No lawn ornaments. No dog. Just a black truck. A front porch light that flickered when it rained, and a silence that didn't ask questions. He worked nights at a repair shop called Hale's Auto. Fixed carburetors with fingers that used to dismantle weapons. Changed oil like it mattered. Kept his head down. Talked only when spoken to. The other guys called him the Quiet One. Nobody knew he used to run black ops in Eastern Europe. Nobody knew what his hands had done, or what they refused to do. Every morning, before going home, Jason sat in the same booth at Margie's Diner. Black coffee. No sugar. 1 egg, dry toast. That's where he first noticed her. Miss Evelyn, 82. Skin like rice paper. Hair curled like she'd just come from church, even though it was Tuesday. She always wore purple. Said it made her feel royal. She knew every waitress's name and asked how their kids were doing, even when they forgot hers. She smelled like powdered lavender and cinnamon. Jason never spoke to her, but he watched the way she moved. Carefully, like her bones were glass. But her eyes? Still sharp, still alive. Some mornings, she paid for other people's meals. Sometimes she didn't have enough for her own. No one paid much attention. People get used to kindness. They stopped seeing it. That afternoon, Jason took the long way home. No reason, just something in his gut told him to keep driving. The clouds were bruised and low, whispering rain that hadn't started yet. As he turned onto 9th Street, he saw it, the flashing reds and blues. 2 squad cars parked halfway on the sidewalk in front of Evelyn's little blue house with the peeling shutters. Her garden gnomes were scattered like they'd been kicked. The front door hung wide open. Jason slowed. He heard shouting. A male officer. Loud. Get back inside, ma'am. Now. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. But my cat, she's still in there. His name is Benny. The other cop, a woman, stepped forward fast. That's it. I'm done playing games. Jason watched her grab Evelyn's wrist. Hard. Too hard. The old woman twisted. Stumbled. Her cane fell. Her knees buckled. Then, like a scene that moved too fast for the heart to catch, her face struck the sidewalk. Blood bloomed across the concrete. Jason parked without thinking. Left the engine running. He stepped out, silent. The cops didn't see him at first. Evelyn was on the ground, moaning soft. The male officer stood over her, muttering into his radio. Jason walked closer. Calm. Cold. Let her go. The words came out flat, controlled. But they hit like a gunshot. The woman cop spun around. Who the hell are you? Jason's jaw tightened. Nobody. Just someone who's not okay with this. Back off, the male said. She's interfering with an investigation. Jason pointed to Evelyn. That's interference. The officers squared up, puffed out their chests. The male officer stepped toward Jason, maybe 2 inches taller, 20-pound heavier, but soft around the middle. He tried to crowd him. Bad idea. You're about to get arrested, the officer warned. Jason didn't move. For what? Watching. The woman cop laughed. You want to join her in the back seat? Jason knelt next to Evelyn instead. Her lip was split, one eye already swelling. She whispered, I was just looking for Benny. Jason helped her up gently. I know. The crowd had started forming by then. Neighbors, kids, bystanders with phones out. The cops noticed. Their hands hovered near their belts. Jason didn't blink. "You're done here." The officers made one last threat, but something in Jason's eyes stopped them. That old weight, that presence, like a man who'd buried more danger than they'd ever meet. They backed off. Jason walked Evelyn inside her home. The TV was still on. The lights still flickered. He locked the door behind them. Outside, the sirens faded. Inside, Evelyn cried softly into a kitchen towel. Jason stood at the window and watched the police leave. He didn't speak, just listened to the sound of something ancient and sacred breaking in a woman's chest. He'd seen war. He'd seen tyranny. But this was different. This was home, and they had crossed a line. Jason sat in Evelyn's kitchen while she shook sugar into 2 chipped mugs. Her hand trembled, spilling crystals across the counter like shattered glass. "I used to drink coffee with my husband here every morning," she whispered. "He passed in '98, but I still pour 2 cups. Habit, I guess." Jason didn't answer. He looked at the bruises on her wrists, the cut on her cheekbone, the way her shoulders curled inward like she was trying to disappear inside herself. "How long have they been bothering you?" he asked. She looked away. "Couple weeks. Ever since that envelope came. Said I had 10 days to vacate." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Vacate?" "They said the house was condemned. Unsafe." She shook her head. "But I've lived here for 42 years. Raised my kids here. Buried my husband from this very porch." Jason picked up the envelope from the table. City of Franklin, Department of Urban Renewal. Official notice, immediate compliance required. But the details were sloppy. Wrong parcel number, wrong filing code, and no city seal. He read it twice. "This is fake." Evelyn blinked. "What?" Jason stood. "Someone wants you out, and they're willing to lie to make it happen." She held the mug close to her chest. "Why?" Jason didn't have the answer. Not yet, but he felt it in his gut. Corruption always starts with a signature and ends with silence. Someone was betting she'd go quietly, that no one would notice if an old woman just vanished. But they hadn't counted on him. The next morning, Jason walked into the county records office with the letter in his back pocket. The woman at the front desk gave him a half smile. "Property inquiries?" "Yeah." He handed her the address. Her eyes scanned the system, then blinked in confusion. "That property hasn't been flagged. Not even close. Last inspection was 2019, passed with no violations." Jason nodded once. "You sure?" She turned the monitor toward him, crystal clear. Then he showed her the letter. She frowned. "We didn't send this. Can I get a printed statement that confirms that?" She hesitated. "I'm not really supposed to." Jason leaned forward just enough. Not a threat, just truth. "Please." She printed it. Next stop, the local news station. Jason handed the envelope and city record to a young reporter named Nate, 20-something, overworked, underpaid, more focused on likes than facts. "This could be something," Jason said. "She's not the only one." Nate shrugged. "Maybe, but it's not really a story unless there's blood or body cam footage. People click feelings, not files." Jason left without another word. He wasn't surprised. People don't care until it's too late. So that night, Jason went back to Evelyn's with a plan. He walked through her home and took pictures. Wiring, pipes, foundation, roofing. He recorded her telling what happened in her own words. Soft and simple. He scanned the letter and matched it with the city's actual records. Then he uploaded it all to a free account on a video sharing site under the title, "They Tried to Erase Her. This is what happened instead." The next morning, it had 12 views. By midnight, it had over 50,000. Comments flooded in. Outrage, support, offers to help. Journalists messaged him. Strangers sent money to a GoFundMe Evelyn didn't even know existed yet. Someone painted a mural of her outside the diner. Jason sat in his truck, watching the numbers climb, but he didn't smile. This wasn't victory. It was exposure. And exposure makes powerful people nervous. 2 days later, Evelyn got another visit. This time, it wasn't just 2 officers. 3 unmarked sedans pulled up, a building inspector, a fire marshal, and 2 cops in plain clothes with the same smug look he'd seen before, like they were actors reading from the same old script. Jason got there before they stepped on the porch. He stood in the doorway, arms folded. "You got a warrant?" The fire marshal spoke up. "We received complaints. Electrical issues. Could be dangerous." Evelyn stood behind Jason, trembling. Jason said nothing, just handed them the statement from the records office. The men looked at it, then at each other. One of them clicked his tongue and said, "We'll be back." Jason watched them leave. Evelyn leaned on the doorframe. "They're not going to stop, are they?" Jason looked out across the lawn. "No, but neither am I." That night, Jason wrote a list. Names, departments, journalists, lawyers. He made copies of everything. Printed files. Cloud backups. No more asking for help. No more hoping someone would do the right thing. It was time to make them see her. And he knew exactly where to start. The town had a way of looking away from its own reflection. People knew things, bad things, but wrapped them in excuses. "It's just how it is," they'd say. "Don't get involved." Especially when it came to the police. Especially in Franklin. Jason wasn't looking to start a war, but war had a way of starting itself. The morning after the visit from the fire marshal, Evelyn's mailbox was flattened. No tire tracks. Just crushed flat like someone took a bat to it. A red flag, broken in half, dangled like a warning. Jason replaced it that same afternoon with a steel one, bolted it down, reinforced the base. Quiet, steady, like he was building something bigger than mail protection. Later that week, the city issued a fine $1,200 for exterior code violations. Overgrown shrubs, chipped paint, a downspout bent at the corner. Jason went to the city building in person, asked for a hearing. The clerk laughed. "That could take 6 to 9 months, she said. Jason didn't blink. "Schedule it anyway." He handed her a sealed envelope of photos, timestamps, and a notarized copy of Evelyn's inspection clearance. On the way out, he passed a young man sitting on the steps, flipping through an eviction notice of his own. Jason paused. "What's your address?" The kid hesitated. "Why?" Jason crouched. "Because they're not just after her." Turned out he was right. Over the next week, Jason uncovered 9 more cases. Elderly, single, disabled, all getting flagged for violations. All centered in the same 4-block radius. Prime land marked for a future, affordable housing development, tied to a private contractor with deep pockets and city ties. Jason made a map, plotted the addresses, printed it out, and taped it to Evelyn's fridge. "You're not alone," he told her. She looked at the pins, lips trembling. "But what can we do?" Jason's voice was low, calm. "We show them we're not afraid." So they did. The next Sunday, Jason drove Evelyn to the First Community Church downtown. It was packed. Families, veterans, blue-collar workers in their best denim. Jason stood by the door while Evelyn took the mic. She told the truth about the letter, about the visit, about the bruises. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "I'm not asking for a miracle," she said. "Just for someone to say, 'This is wrong.'" They stood for her when she finished. Some clapped, some cried, some shook Jason's hand on the way out. A week later, local businesses started putting up signs. "We stand with Evelyn." Jason dropped off a thick packet of evidence to a civil rights attorney in Columbus, Michelle Torres. She wore sneakers with her power suit and read every word Jason gave her. "This is airtight," she said. "But once we go public, they'll come for you." Jason nodded. "Let them." The next morning, a brick shattered Evelyn's window. Jason was already there. He swept the glass quietly, boarded up the frame, made no calls, took no pictures. But that same day, the video Jason posted weeks ago hit 2 million views. A retired Army vet offered to install security cameras. A local baker started delivering fresh bread to Evelyn's porch every Friday. Strangers began writing her letters, some from as far as Texas, even one from Alaska. Jason stayed focused, unshaken. until the mayor reached out. A private call, smooth voice, full of apologies. "We'd like to offer a settlement," he said. "Pay the fines, help her relocate. Quietly. No more trouble." Jason leaned into the phone. "You don't get it. We're not looking for a deal." There was a long pause, then a sigh. "You're making this harder than it has to be." Jason's voice was ice. "No, I'm just making it visible." He hung up. That night, Jason stood on Evelyn's porch and watched the neighborhood. It felt different now. Awake. People left their porch lights on. Kids rode their bikes a little slower, like they were watching, too. Inside, Evelyn handed him a box. "What's this?" he asked. She smiled gently. "Just some of Henry's old tools. He'd have liked you." Jason opened the lid and found a rusted wrench, a faded tape measure, and a pocket knife with a worn-wood handle. Jason turned it over in his palm, quiet. Sometimes power doesn't roar. Sometimes it creaks open in small, simple ways. In trust, in memory, in an old woman who refuses to vanish quietly. The wind picked up. Jason looked out at the street. The fight wasn't over. But for the first time, the town was standing up with him. It happened on a Thursday. Cold morning. Sky like bruised metal, breath foggy in the air. Jason pulled into Evelyn's driveway with 2 bags of groceries and a new heater, just in case. But the moment he stepped out of the truck, he felt it. Quiet. Too quiet. No birds. No dogs barking. No distant hammering from a construction crew down the block. Just stillness. Then he saw the orange tag stapled to the door. Emergency structure removal. 24-hour notice. Jason tore it down. There'd been no hearing. No inspection. No due process. Just another tactic. A new kind of threat. He went inside. Evelyn sat in her favorite chair, wrapped in 2 blankets. The furnace had gone out again overnight. She hadn't called. Hadn't wanted to bother him. "I thought maybe this was it," she said quietly. "Maybe it's time I stopped fighting." Jason crouched in front of her. "You don't stop. Not now." She gave a small smile. "You sound like Henry." Jason helped her stand. "Let's remind them who you are." The next day, the bulldozers came. 3 of them, escorted by 6 officers and a private demolition crew in neon vests. A fire marshal signed off on the order. Cameras weren't rolling. No one notified the press. But Jason knew they'd come, and he was ready. He stood on the porch as the first bulldozer idled at the curb. Calm, still, dressed in black with a small GoPro clipped to his chest. The live stream had been running since dawn. 20,000 people were watching. The foreman stepped forward with a clipboard. "You need to vacate the premises, sir." Jason didn't move. "Show me the judge's signature." The man paused, unsure. Behind him, one of the officers approached, tall, gray-haired, thick-necked, the same one who'd pushed Evelyn to the ground. Jason recognized him instantly. So did the live stream chat. The officer pulled out cuffs. "I said vacate." Jason turned toward him, stepped off the porch. Their eyes locked. "You remember me, don't you?" Jason said. The officer smirked. "I remember you ran your mouth last time." Jason leaned in slightly, voice low. "No, you remember that little girl. The one who went missing 3 years ago. You buried the lead. I dug her out." The smirk dropped. Jason kept going. "I've got your name, your badge number, and now I've got your face. This camera sees everything." For a long second, no one moved. The officer's hand twitched, but didn't reach for the cuffs. Then, slowly, he stepped back. The bulldozer engines quieted. The foreman scratched his head and looked to the fire marshal. "We're not doing this today," the marshal muttered. They backed off. The crowd behind Jason began to cheer, not loudly, but enough. Enough to be heard. Enough to matter. Within an hour, the video clip hit the top of the feed across every major platform. Veteran blocks illegal demolition of elderly woman's home. Jason Statham stands ground against corrupt officers. Town turns on police as whistleblower video surfaces. Evelyn's name trended. Again, this time, reporters did come. National ones. Microphones, vans, the whole swarm. But Jason didn't speak for the cameras. He let Evelyn tell her story, her way. No polish, no spin, just the truth. A local councilman called for a full investigation that afternoon. The mayor, in a panic, held a press conference and promised swift review of current urban development practices. Jason watched it on Evelyn's tiny TV with his arms crossed. "You think they'll do it?" she asked. Jason's voice was steady. "No, but they know we will." That night, the civil rights attorney, Michelle, called him. "They're offering full dismissal of charges, restoration of title, and a public apology," she said. "You want to take it?" Jason was quiet for a long moment. "Only if it's live. On camera." She chuckled. "You've got leverage. Use it." Evelyn wept when she heard the news. Not out of relief. Out of exhaustion. "I didn't think anyone would ever fight for me again," she whispered. Jason didn't say anything. He just sat with her in the silence. The next day, Evelyn stood on the steps of City Hall with Jason beside her. The mayor, pale and tight-lipped, read a statement. A formal apology. Promises of reform. Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Evelyn didn't say much. She didn't need to. Jason did. "This was never about politics," he said into the mic. "This was about power. And what happens when people stop pretending not to see it?" The crowd roared, not with anger, but with hope. Because for once, the machine had blinked. If you were in Jason's shoes, would you have stood your ground or walked away? Tell us below. Your voice matters more than you think. The apology meant nothing if the system didn't change. Jason knew that. So did Evelyn. The cameras left. The news vans rolled away. People returned to their lives. But shadows don't vanish just because a spotlight flickers on. They wait, and they regroup. 1 week later, Evelyn's power was cut off. No notice, no warning, just cold silence in the middle of February. Jason found her bundled under 3 blankets, fingers blue at the tips, her breath visible in the air. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Jason hauled in 2 generators and space heaters. He cooked her breakfast on a portable stove and installed temporary lighting. He called every number he could find at the electric company. All dead ends. They said it was grid maintenance, Evelyn mumbled. Said it could be days. Jason's voice was flat. "They're still coming." And he was done waiting. He called Michelle. "Can you get me a court order?" "I can try," she said. "But if they're burying the paperwork, it might be too late." Jason looked out the frosted window. "I'm not asking them anymore." The next morning, just before dawn, Jason stood in Evelyn's yard as a caravan of city vehicles arrived. The demolition order had been reissued. This time, it was labeled immediate safety hazard. They pushed the same lie, just louder. The street filled with watchers, some supporters, some just curious. But Jason wasn't there to entertain. He stood alone on the front lawn, arms crossed, a folder in one hand. Evidence. Court filings, expert testimonies, all legal, all binding, but they weren't here for facts. They were here for fear. The lead foreman climbed out of the truck and pointed. "Get him off the property." Jason raised a folder. "This is under review. You touched this house, and you'll answer for it." The same cop from before, gray hair, heavy jaw, stepped forward again. "You just don't quit, do you?" Jason stepped closer. "She's not going anywhere, and neither am I." The cop reached for his cuffs again. Jason didn't flinch. Behind him, Evelyn stood on the porch. No cane, no coat, just her presence, quiet, resolute. The crowd stirred. Phones were out again. Live streams rolling. "Do it," Jason said, staring down the officer. "Cuff me on camera. Show them who you protect." The officer hesitated. Sweat on his brow, a flicker of memory. That little girl Jason had saved. The headlines. The disgrace he narrowly escaped back then. Jason didn't move, didn't blink, just waited. And then, slowly, the officer lowered the cuffs, turned, walked away. The foreman called someone on his phone. Jason watched him mutter, then nod, then slam his clipboard shut. The bulldozers reversed. The trucks pulled away. Just like that, they left. A cheer erupted from the crowd, but Jason didn't celebrate. He turned to Evelyn, who stood trembling, hands pressed to her chest. A tear slipped down her cheek. "You did it," she whispered. Jason shook his head. "We did." That night, the video went viral again. 20 million views in a day. Local papers ran headlines. National anchors played clips on prime time. Civil rights leaders praised Jason by name. Petitions poured in. Demands for reform. Investigations were launched into the City Planning Commission, the Police Conduct Board, and the construction contracts tied to the project. Within a week, the mayor resigned. Within a month, 5 city officials were suspended pending review. Jason stayed out of the spotlight. He didn't do interviews, didn't sign deals. When reporters came to Evelyn's house, he helped her hang a wooden sign on her porch. "We're not going anywhere." The city sent one final offer, a massive settlement. Evelyn laughed and used the check to repair her roof, pay off her neighbors' fines, and repaint her shutters purple. One of the little girls down the street painted flowers on her mailbox. Jason kept fixing cars during the week. Still quiet, still private. But people stopped calling him the quiet one. Now, they called him what he truly was. The one who stood, the one who stayed, the one who didn't back down. And for once in a long time, Jason Statham could look at the world and know he had changed something that would never fully go back. 1 month later, the wind carried birdsong through Evelyn's yard again. Spring came early that year, like the town itself had started breathing differently. The frost melted quicker. The sun stayed longer. Neighbors who used to keep their heads down now waved from porches and paused in driveways just to talk. Evelyn's house, once marked for demolition, stood stronger than ever. A new roof, fresh siding, and shutters painted a bold royal purple, her favorite color, the color of survival. A local painter gifted her a mural for the side of the house. It showed a silhouette of a woman holding a sunflower in one hand and a protest sign in the other. At the bottom, in flowing white script, "I am still here." Jason didn't stick around for the ribbon cutting. He dropped off a new garden hose that morning, fixed her screen door, then disappeared before the speeches. He never liked being clapped for, but Evelyn knew where to find him. She brought a picnic basket to Hale's auto on a Thursday afternoon, set it gently on the workbench next to his grease-stained gloves. "You never came back for those cookies I promised," she said. Jason smiled, small just enough. "You never owed me anything." Evelyn shook her head. "That's where you're wrong. You reminded me I matter. That's not something I'll ever forget." They sat on the tailgate of his truck and ate lemon bars in the sun. Quiet, easy, not a single camera in sight. The civil rights attorney, Michelle, stopped by later that week. She handed Jason a stack of printed petitions and a manila folder. "You've sparked more than a headline," she said. "They're drafting legislation. Protection for elder homeowners. Independent review boards. It's real." Jason flipped through the pages, then handed them back. "Make sure it stays real." She nodded. "We will." "You started something, Jason." He shook his head slowly. "No, she did. I just made sure someone listened." News crews still called. Networks wanted exclusives. Book offers rolled in. Jason ignored them all. He didn't want a platform. He wanted peace. A few weeks later, Evelyn celebrated her 83rd birthday. The church threw a surprise party. Streamers, choir songs, homemade casseroles stretching the length of 4 tables. Jason showed up late and stood in the back with his hands in his pockets. Evelyn spotted him instantly. She walked right up, grabbed his hand, and pulled him to the front of the room like he was her own son. "This man," she said, "showed me that justice isn't something you wait for. It's something you make." The room erupted in applause. Jason didn't say anything. He just gave her hand a small squeeze and looked out at the people. Really looked. They weren't clapping for a hero. They were clapping because someone reminded them it was okay to stand up, to be loud, to say enough. The system hadn't fallen overnight. It never does. But it had cracked. And through that crack, light poured in. That was enough, for now. Jason left the party early, drove to the edge of town where the fields met the sky, parked the truck, and leaned back in the seat. No music, just the wind, the quiet hum of something settled. Not over, but better. He looked down at the small pocket knife Evelyn had given him weeks earlier, Henry's old one, still sharp, still steady, just like him. Injustice doesn't always wear armor. It doesn't always scream or swing or storm to the gates. Sometimes it knocks softly. It wears a name tag, carries a clipboard, smiles politely while it moves your things out, deletes your file, or tells you it's just procedure. And most people, they look away, not because they're cruel, but because they're tired, scared, conditioned to believe that the little things don't matter, that one old woman, one crooked letter, one broken window can't change anything. But Jason Statham knew different. He didn't save Evelyn because he was fearless. He saved her because fear had already stolen enough from both of them. He saved her because silence, once it becomes a habit, starts to sound a lot like consent. He didn't kick down doors or make threats. He didn't have to. He just showed up, day after day. And sometimes showing up is the most dangerous thing you can do, because it means a lie doesn't go unchallenged. It means someone's watching. It means someone's willing to say, no more. Jason never gave a speech, never asked for thanks, never looked for credit. He just stood in the space where so many people had backed away. And in doing so, he reminded all of us that courage doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's tired. Sometimes it's just a man in a hoodie holding an old woman's hand and daring the world to keep going the way it always has. But when someone like that shows up, everything shifts. Not because he's special, not because he's a hero, but because he decided that one person is enough to make a system uncomfortable. He decided that this neighborhood, this house, this woman was worth the fight. And maybe that's the lesson. Not that justice always wins, but that it only has a chance when someone ordinary refuses to sit down. When someone says, this is where the line is, and then stands there, even if they're the only one. Jason Statham stood for Evelyn, not because she was powerful, but because she mattered, and sometimes that's all it takes.